Hello, everybody. Just pouring myself a bourbon. Give me a second. So while it's in the frame, I would like to thank Cappy for sending me the decanter that's back there. Pretty awesome. You didn't have to do that. All right, I'm here. I was talking to my kid. Sorry. Hello, friends. What's up? What's going on? Use that one. Happy first X live birthday? Oh no, I've been live on X each time for the last like couple months. Yeah, I've been going live across all of them. So I'm live on 2 different personal YouTube channels. Twitch, X, and my Facebook. G'day, mate. What's up, man? So tonight's going to be a little bit different than the normal live streams that I do after the Funker 530 show. Tonight, we are going to be... Hold on. That's going to bother me. The box. Go Gadget. OCD. All right, so tonight... we're going to be chatting about, and I hope you guys have questions. That way we could talk about them. We're going to be chatting about and reviewing footage from my time in Western North Carolina. Wait, but why? What? Huh? You were rooting for that rooster? That poor little kid, man. What's up, Mr. Nice Guy? Never gotten a notification? Excellent. Yeah, man. I've been using Twitter quite a bit more. X, whatever. I think it's a dogfight on X all the time, and a wide open platform like that is going to be a double-edged sword for a multitude of reasons. But in the grand scheme, I think it's positive. The white case is facing the wrong way. Yeah, I know, but that's because there's no GPU in it. There's no CPU in it. It's basically just a case. Why are you on 2 YouTube channels? Because I couldn't decide which of my personal YouTube channels to put this on, right? Normally, I only game on Ronnie Fit, but I have done other stuff over there as well. And then on the gun vlog, that's where I normally place this. But I had an open slot, and I, to be honest with you, wanted to maximize the reach of the footage that we're going to see here. So let me set the stage for you for a second and help you understand why we went to North Carolina in the first place. Because the trip itself was actually being worked long before we were ever invited to embed. Something like the Wednesday before last, I was chatting with the missus and I was like, hey, I would like to take like a truckload of supplies or something down just to do what we can. It won't be much, just what I could fit in my truck. And we had kind of agreed that was going to be something I wanted to do. And it was going to happen quietly. Just, I was going to drive down, drop the stuff off, sleep in my truck, drive back. Well, a fellow kind of content space person got me connected with the National Guard. And I asked them, would you guys be interested in an embed? And they were like, yes, we absolutely want an embed. And we're going to talk about some takeaways that I have from that. I don't have a script. This is, one of my normal lives. It's just me chatting. We're gonna talk about why they needed that. But that's when it transitioned from just a trip that we were going to take down there into this documentation type trip that we have now. So sum total, just to give everybody an understanding of what the Funker 530 team put together. First of all, my gaming community stepped in with about $700 that we moved from our Fit PC effort, which is a veteran charity type effort. I am not a charity, but I cordon off anything that people donate to it to buy custom gaming PCs and send those to a veteran in need. We cordoned off money from that, about $700 worth, to start filling my truck. And then I talked with Funker, and essentially he just opened up a blank check and said, fill your truck up with whatever you can with the remainder. So we ended up with somewhere just north of about $2,500 worth of propane, heaters, blankets, kids and adult winter clothing, and then some like additional items that we actually ended up donating to like the volunteer teams that are helping. A lot of people look at this from, just the survivors that are impacted. And yes, they are absolutely are. But you also have volunteers, especially, you have volunteers that are down there that are sleeping and operating in, generally speaking, the same conditions, trying to help as well. So things like hand warmers, flashlights, additional flashlights, essentially just taking what people could use. So that was originally the primary purpose. But then we got this invite to do an embed with the National Guard. And one of the reasons that we got that invite is because of the amount of bullshit that was making its way out. The amount of confusion that was making its way out, the difference between Title 32 resources and Title 10 resources, things that I talked about but didn't dive too far into because, again, I couldn't make heads or tails of what was happening there, right? I just chose not to even engage with it because you've got all of these reports of malice when in a lot of circumstances it's like negligence or a poor understanding of the complexity. So I have my final thoughts being put together for a video, like a final culmination video from this. But I do also want to caveat that my only time there was like 5 days total, if that. I think it's like 4.5. So I'm only able to speak to the things that I saw. I can't speak to any more than the 2 counties in Western North Carolina out of the 10 total that are impacted in Western North Carolina. I can only speak to North Carolina and can't speak to the other 5 states that are also impacted by Helene. I can only speak to what my eyes touched. So tonight you're going to see footage that I captured both from my phone and from like our production kit that we took down there. And hopefully what I'll be able to do is kind of contextualize the complexity of this, because I think a lot of people are kind of categorizing it alongside other hurricanes, especially from a total amount of people impacted, right? So they look at Katrina and it was 30,000 people impacted. So they're like, well, it's not as bad as Katrina. It's 30,000 people. Well, as we go through this, which probably takes about an hour and a half, understand that topography is what ultimately really makes this much more complex. You have Appalachia, you have mountain ranges that Helene sat over top of and dumped, in some locations, 30 inches of water, just dumped water over it. It turned those hollers and valleys into effectively just gas pedals for walls of water. In those hollers and valleys, if you live in, grew up in, visited Appalachia, or small communities, all the way up towards the top of those mountains, there are disparate houses, and there are thousands of hollers and valleys that you have to search and you have to touch, each and every one of those. So each of those individual spots is going to need, likely, especially if they're on a waterway, what I call last mile aid brought to the front door. They've got bridges that are just not there anymore. And I mean, these are large, large bridges. You've got even smaller scale items, like some communities are split between a creek, a wide creek, if you will. But the only way that they can access the closest groceries are to cross that creek. But the creek rose by like 10 feet and blew out the little bridges that they had in place. there's so much more complexity from a needs perspective and still so much bullshit based on my perspective that is floating around that I really am just hoping that I can contextualize the complexity of this, maybe dispel some of the rumors, and show you what I saw, right? So we're going to start with the chopper. I'm just basically pulling raw footage. Another caveat on the footage. It's all filmed in RAW. That means that the color it's filmed in a way for us to work the color in post-production. You're seeing this before, like I have watched most of it. So it's going to almost look like black and white. It's not quite, but for those of you familiar with pre and post-production coloring and such, you'll understand that. We're going to start with Arrival. And I don't have a script for this. So this is us arriving at Hickory to get on a National Guard bird. That National Guard bird's going to take us out to Burnsville. Now let's pause here for a second because I want to talk about something. One of the things that's being passed around is that Hickory Airport, as of even the week that I arrived there, was not allowing volunteers out on the tarmac. In the specific instance that I am tracking, one of the problems that Hickory Airport had is like 100 volunteers packing and unpacking boxes, in the taxiways or on the flight line. Effectively, for those of you that have operated in and around a flight line before, you can't have just loose shit laying around. Right, the rotor washer is going to pick it up. The propeller is going to pick it up. There are a lot of problems with that. There's a reason that you don't see many people wearing hats. Anything loose, you've got to take off. So that was one of those things that kind of spun up and made its way out. That I think a little bit of context is necessary. Hello, Mr. White. Thank you very much for being here and for the super chat that I missed on the Funker show, man. And no, I don't have that overlay set up properly. So here we are getting kitted out or getting buckled in and such. Like a crew chief or a pilot there. I'm literally just showing you the footage that I have. Like there's no rhyme or reason to this. I just kind of want to take you through in time and space our trip. Let's come back up here. And this is before the final video. Like, I probably shouldn't be doing this because nobody's going to watch the final video after this. But anyway, as we're taking off on the bird. So one of the things to note here is I'm not on comms. I'm not on comms. I'm just running like earplugs right now. But on the way back, we actually were on comms, and I'm on standby to more or less get an approval to release the comms. I'll give you that thought process around why. I'll bet you that the deconfliction that's taking place on the bird right now, even though I'm not listening to comms, I did listen to them later, is almost impossible to discern. There are so many birds that are flying right now. You're going to see footage here eventually of LZSO qualified air traffic controllers from the Air National Guard that are running the volunteer locations out there, at least two that I can name, Banner Elk and the Harley dealership. We'll talk more about the Harley dealership. But there's a reason that the deconfliction is talked about so much. One of the reasons that there was a lot of discussion about air and the closure of air and asking people to not be flying is because there are birds just doing this. Once I get kind of an approval to release that audio from the chopper, I think that'll provide a whole lot of context for you. We don't need to watch my stupid face anymore. I'm just clicking through these. I'll show you my screen. I'm just clicking through stuff here. Let's see if we can get to... I think this will be landing. Maybe not. Hold on, let me find the video of us landing. Again, I don't have a design behind this at all. It's just, this is what we got. I'll have to pull that from my personal phone. There's some pieces to the personal, on the personal phone that I want to chat about. See if Will got it on his phone media. Yeah, he did. Nope. For some reason, I don't have the video of us coming in and landing. I did post it, though. So as we were coming into Burnsville, one of the things we saw was the FEMA compound that was out there. And it's not as large as you think. I don't recall the population of Burnsville. The reason I wanted to show you that is what I found to be interesting is that I only encountered one FEMA employee the entirety of my time there. Now, two thoughts before somebody takes that, clips it, and, runs with it. One, my mission, if you will, was not to go and find FEMA. It was to embed with the guard. Two, I know they're there because I saw their compound, right? Relative to what it is they are or are not doing throughout the entirety of this tonight, can't field it. Have no idea. Let's start showing some of the footage from as we begin moving out. One of the first places that we went to was what they call a pile. I think this is, yeah. This is what they call a pile. So this is us arriving to the pile site and going to meet with Task Force 3. So Task Force 3 are North Carolinian urban search and rescue team. So you'll see when I talk about this here in a minute that an overwhelming majority of the people in the government emergency operations center are state level resources, right? I mean, some of them wearing like Trump hats. I think there's a massive disconnect relative to federal and state and who owns what. At one point I asked, when you see the footage of this pile, which I'll contextualize again in a second, who owns this site, right? So whose site is this? Who manages this? Who owns, screw ups? Who owns positives that come from this? The sheriff, local resources manage it. Let's go to actual footage of the pile here. Ooh, this is good. This is good.
In a rescue situation, your primary search, your initial search.
I know it's quiet. I fixed that in a second.
I'm looking for viable victims or viable folks that are trapped, stuck, and need help. Okay. After a certain amount of time in a situation like this, we do transition into a secondary search, which is slower, methodical, pulling pieces apart, looking for those folks that.
So what he is saying here, does this work? It does. So what he is saying here is that when you're conducting your searches, you start with a little bit more broad. Like you're sniffing around, you're just kind of moving through, doing quick searches. Then you get into this more methodical version of search, which is where they are now, and that's going to be the footage that we watch next, wherein effectively you have prioritized certain areas. So this area specifically was prioritized because it was in a bend of a river with two bridges back to back, and upriver about 3 miles from Burnsville was a campground. That campground was just totally destroyed, and a family was known to be there. That family consisted of a father, a mother, a child, and a grandmother. The father had been found already. This pile, I think this is a better version. This is a better.
We cleared all the hasty searches, the primary searches 2 days ago.
Stand by. Let me just show you this for a second. No, that's not it. Again, no rhyme here.
Yes, they just kept going. I think paddle cats and all kinds of stuff. I don't know what it is, but they went down there just to see, search. Somebody will come back weeks, whatever, and then eventually pull debris piles apart because we don't.
See, these guys wearing Florida shirts. So these are state level assets that were brought up from Florida. He is kind of in a leadership role out there.
So what we base our searching on is high probability areas. Obviously the campground was upstream from here, we did have folks missing from that area. So this is a high probability with the bridge, the curve in the stream itself, another bridge here. It gathers a lot of debris. So we base it on that probability, okay? We get down here, we see all these piles. Obviously our Texas folks had dogs with them. They ran their dogs, and we did have a hit on one of the piles. A confirmation from a dog, a human remain detecting dog, if you will, an HRD. They run the piles. If they alert, then they mark it. And that becomes a targeted search now for us. So now we come back to those specially marked piles, run dogs again. If we get another hit, then we start to dig, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so note his jacket here. He is North Carolina, Task Force 3. And I see a question in the chat that, oh, wrong button, that I was getting to eventually. No, the father was found deceased. And with this pile, which we're going to, now I promise we're going to watch it. I just need to contextualize it for you. With this pile, a cadaver dog, so he called it an HRD, it's a cadaver dog, had hit on this pile. Multiple cadaver dogs had hit on this pile over the course of time, right? So that means that it raised up the priority list. One of the things that you have to do is prioritize assets and where they go, especially around population centers where the population density is most heavy. Most of your resources are going to be aligned to that. So here is the search on that pile. This is an interesting video here. So this is a National Guard excavator that's going to do some trickery here and make his way down. You'll see a National Guard guy here, his ground guide, if you will. It's going to do some trickery and make its way down this embankment. See kind of the disparate amount of teams that are there. More of that. No, so just to answer that question, the question from YouTube is, did you get a chance to go up to Bloody Fork or Bent Creek? I saw videos of the campground. It was mind-blowing. We wanted to. Yeah, we wanted to go up there because that would have kind of brought this portion of our trip to just provided that much more context. What we're seeing is the end result of that campground being pushed down the river. Most of this debris that you're going to see here in a second, it comes from that campground. And that's where this family was. Again, a father, a mother, a child, a daughter specifically, and a grandmother. So here, again, this is that National Guard excavator. And when they identified or prioritized this pile, that's when they called the excavator from a resource perspective. That's when they prioritized the heavy machinery to come in and expedite clearing that pile. Don't worry, we're just getting started. Now we're going to start getting into the destruction. And it's important to note, if you look in the background here, that this is North Carolina 19, and it is just flowing with traffic, right? So you have what I was calling this dichotomy, if you will, where in many places you have a more or less a return, some semblance of return to normalcy, and right next to that is just chaos. That's what you have here. This is like Burnsville proper. So population center, the county seat for Yancey County, in fact. All right, let's come up and we'll start to see some of the work from this excavator. Then I'm going to blow your mind. That's not good. Well, this will give you some perspective on the pile he's working on here. Look at how gentle he's being with that. I know we kind of cut that video off. We got more of this on the phone, and I'll pull that up in a second. But look at how gentle he's being with that bucket. The reason he's being so gentle is because there's a body there. So 24 hours after this, they do find within kind of 20 meters of this spot, the mother. By the time I had left, they had still not yet found the grandmother or the child. The initial information that we got was that it was actually 2 kids. So kind of some conflicting reports there. Just depends on who you ask about it. But let me see if one of the videos I got on the phone is good for that one. No. I'm doing a bad job contextualizing this. I guess the video didn't upload from my phone to it. It'll be in the final video, but let me try and work through it with you. It's really difficult to describe the scale of just how big this pile is and how many of them there are. So I'll get into SARCOP here in a bit. I'm going to show you footage from inside the Emergency Operations Center. You're gonna see maps. We had unimpeded access to everything inside the Government Operations Center. Let's go to the next bit of video that I have on the main camera, though. So we were there. What is this?
So we're starting to shift to the supplies people.
This is so again. This is like their internal briefing. We had unimpeded access to anything we wanted to hear or see.
Portable heaters when the power is out and it's a little bit colder, things like that. So we're working towards those things right now. Just want to let you know that's a huge thing that's happening. Base camp has been working well. Also, I was out there, wanted to kind of update you on the USAR. These guys and girls are really doing a great job continuing. I know I say it every night.
I'll note that if I had to guess in this video that I don't think a lot of people are giving credit, if I had to guess, 95% of the people in this video are Burnsville or Western North Carolina locals. And again, this is the government. This is the government response center, the Emergency Operations Center. It's all like local, state level assets that are there. There is one Fed in that entire building, and it's the FEMA liaison. I'll show you her here in a minute, just to help contextualize that.
But we got a chance today to go out because there was one locally here in town on the debris pile, and they're working with the military with that heavy equipment, and it is just an impressive process to watch. And so each of us that were there were just impressed with what we're able to see, and the respect with which they're doing what they need to do, but also the efficiency with which they're doing it. So thank you. Please pass that along to your guys. I know I'm going to be able to say that again tonight. But Jerry and those individuals just do such a great job. So that's our update operationally. We're going to have more and more happening every day.
So just so you know, this guy is the incident manager. So he is effectively the response lead for all of Yancey County. Now, there are 10 total counties in Western North Carolina that have emergency operations centers stood up. That guy is the manager of all of this for Yancey County, just to give you an understanding of that. Let's move on to the next video. What is this? Oh man. So I was showing you that pile, and I'll show you this one after the next bit of video that I have here. Because we eventually went back to that pile location after the National Guard had left. That way we could maneuver in and around it to show you, much more up close. And I think I was running the camera this time. So these are going to be a little bit longer. Yeah, here we go. So this is that pile location. So I'm going to pan towards it here. That excavator had moved down through here. And this is where the pile was. And it was previously about as high as my mouse right now. You'll see Will come into frame here in a second. You should. Look at the power lines that are down there. This is Burnsville proper. Let's go to the next one here. Here's Will. I don't know what this building was previously. That's Will_Kilmore on Twitter. All of these lines are dead right now. That's actually our guide, if you will. Go to the next one here. There's the excavator in the background. So somewhere within 20 meters of this location, the mother was found of that family of 4. Will, to give you some scale of some of this. And this is day 1 too. Like, again, at this point, we hadn't even left. We had arrived that morning. Or that afternoon. We arrived at like 12:45, 1 o'clock, something like that. So this is probably 5, 6 p.m. I don't know. Stuff everywhere, man.
What to do?
Now, one of the things that I think is important to understand is they were working through, this is the pile I'm standing on where previously there was a bunch of debris. And again, somewhere within 20 meters of me right now is a woman's body, and I don't even know that. 20 to 50, I guess. Previously, they had been trying to work piles by hand, and the National Guard excavator that had actually been there. So that National Guard team that's running that excavator had been there since Saturday the 28th, according to the lieutenant that is the OIC for the excavator crew. They staged in Morganton, but were from somewhere else. So they moved to Morganton to stage, and then they had to cut their way into Burnsville. One of the things that I think isn't made apparent enough is that the resources that were staged, all the footage that we were getting early on was from these small, like, volunteer teams that had very mobile capabilities that are kind of reserved for your more elite U.S. military units, the M-Razors, for example. Private Smith from the National Guard doesn't have that kind of mobility. He runs an excavator. All the footage that we were seeing from early on was from those more mobile volunteer teams moving up into the hollers with their small rotary capabilities, their small razors, their own saws. And the problem is the Guard had people on ground early, including September 28th, Saturday, after the storm. But they moved their way into the population centers and started working their way out, right? These small, mobile, awesome fucking volunteer teams that we'll talk about here in a little bit, they were able to put personnel up into the hills very early. And that's the kind of footage that we were getting out of the gate. And I think that set this narrative out of the gate that there were no military resources there. North Carolina was publishing footage as of, Saturday and Sunday of them flying, but with, probably only a few birds. We, the people, outnumber the National Guard. We definitely outnumber the federal government. There's a narrative there that I think is important to understand. Now, those resources that were placed there ahead of time were not enough. You'll see footage here in a little bit of some more heavier hit areas. They most certainly were not enough. I don't think anybody could have expected the complexity of this. Helene stopped and just spun over top of these mountains, man. Just spun and dumped water, and all of that water just came flying down these waterways, these valleys, the hollers, like I said. Let's go to the next one. It's just going to be more of that same spot, which, this is presumed to be the backpack of the father.
Probably one of the undocumented, huh?
Let me pause that before it causes problems. Here. I do have some colored footage here in a bit that we'll go through. Yeah, so this river is flowing, away from you right now, and what you're seeing is all the debris that got piled up on the support structures of the bridge. Right? You'll see that in a little bit once we get to the area near Relief, North Carolina. You sure? Unprecedented? Hurricane never hit before? Yeah, we talked about that when we started, man. This is pretty unprecedented. The last time a hurricane sat over Appalachia was like 200 years ago, and it dumped 30 inches of rain in certain locations, and that water flowed through every holler and every valley that is out there, and every waterway just turned into a wall of chaos that absolutely destroyed communities, man. This is much different than your standard hurricane and cannot be compared to a Katrina or any of the other ones, most of the other ones. I'm no hurricane historian. It's a lot different. That's all I can say. That's the best words I've got for you. Let's move on to the next bit of footage that I have here. So let's move into, again, 24 hours after that video that you saw, somewhere within, again, 50 meters of me was another body that was found. This is the Emergency Operations Center. So these are effectively all the state level resources that are pooling in one location from the government side of the house to conduct emergency response. Note there is only one National Guard desk. It's a captain. He's a super cool kid. He is there primarily to coordinate tasking of resources. How can we take the resources that we have with the National Guard, which under most circumstances are going to be a little bit more of a sledgehammer, if you will, right? So primarily the National Guard has these broad scale capabilities to help restore infrastructure, maybe man guard shacks, the DSCA or Defense Support to Civil Affairs mission is something that the National Guard specifically knows how to do. A lot of people were calling, we need federal troops in there. Well, they actually don't have a Defense Support to Civil Affairs mission, and their federal troops are actually equipped at a lower level from a capabilities perspective than National Guard is. Now, federal can come in with a lot of very advanced, more modern capabilities, like the new version of the Razors that are built off of the Chevy Colorado chassis. I'm drawing a blank, but the 82nd is rolling around in those. I think I have footage of that here in a little bit. But those are the types of capabilities that were pre-staged by the National Guard. Again, that engineering team with the excavator, they cut their way in on the 28th. And the way they described it, it almost sounded like the excavator led the column, if you will. But they're running things like dump trucks, bringing loads and loads of gravel to fill in areas where temporary bridges are being put in place. Very different than what people think from an emergency management perspective. But these are all locals, man. These are all locals, state level assets. I have access to whatever I wanted to look at here. I can walk through here. I can shine the camera at people's laptops. No holds barred. So at the end of the day, just so you're aware, at the end of the day, the guard meets in this, and I have footage of it, meets in this little conference room back here. The command sergeant major of the task force in Yancey, that's assigned to Yancey, is actually a Funker viewer. So it was actually really awesome getting the chance to just chat with him at a very personal level about the problems that they're having, right? But I have footage of one of those meetings too. I just like kind of raised my hand and was like, hey, can I record this? He was like, yeah, come on in. Again, the access that they gave us to this, it was not coordinated very well at all, because some people are like, why are you, like, what are you doing here? And I've got a camera. I'm just like, yeah, they said we could come and film. They're like, okay, let's move on. All right, so this is where I'm gonna go out to a different folder and we'll talk about the razors. So there are certain recon capabilities that got there sometime later. So specific to these recon capabilities, they got there about a week later. More advanced capability than your standard National Guard team. But once they understood the necessity of mobility, especially the complexity of mobility in the area, you never know if you're going to have to ford something, if you're going to have to build a rope bridge, what have you. That's when they rolled these guys in. Samaritan's Purse. I actually encountered Samaritan's Purse, and I think I have footage of them here in a little bit. Badass ride, cold ass ride. I was going to talk about in a little bit, but the coldest I have ever been was on this drive. I sat here, Will sat behind me, the recon team commander sat here, and then the PAO for them sat here. And it's the coldest I've ever been in my life. It was about 40 degrees, and this thing got to moving at about 50 miles an hour. So this is one of those points where I pause and make sure everybody understands an extremely important part of this. Without that Starlink terminal, none of the response would be operable. None of it. I don't care if Starlink has a contract with the Army or the government. I hope they got a bag. I don't care. That Starlink terminal and the entirety of the Emergency Operations Center is running everything. Top to bottom. Every video that I posted while I was there came through Starlink. This recon, that one's a personal from this crew, by the way. This recon team is communicating back anything that they run into via Starlink. Starlink is the only thing keeping people connected that's out there right now. All right, so what this trip was. So now I can move into some of the stuff that I have colored that I've had the time to like piece together. What this day was. So this is the following morning, and I put out a post when I woke up that morning and walked outside to meet the crew. That was like, hey man, if you guys are donating stuff, make sure it's warm weather gear, because that's what people need. People need warm weather gear, whether it be propane, the little buddy heaters, clothing. A lot of people are still running 24/7 off of generators, and you'll see a couple examples of that in the next video that I show you. And you know, that's only going to do so much for you from a heat perspective. There's been snow recently up there. One of the videos I have eventually here in a little bit is quite literally just me showing you ice that was accumulating while I was down there. The mission that we took these razors on was a recon mission. And welfare checks up into an area called Pigeon Roost near Green Mountain. Eventually, we made our way to Relief, North Carolina, which now is serviced by Green Mountain's post office, but they did have their own post office, and at one time, it was called Relief, North Carolina. The video that we'll watch here, I'll contextualize throughout it, is going to show you a summary of that. It's not going to be the entirety of the footage, but I'm getting a little long-winded, and I want to make sure that I'm showing you the footage here. That was my purpose for doing this. So let's get past the razor. All right. Here we go.
We're going to go ahead and go down to one of the down bridges, survey that, see if the local population down there has found a way around to be able to get to resources, or if they might require our services to build a makeshift rope bridge to move supplies back and forth. Then we're going to go over to Poplar and Pigeon Roost. I almost just like over your spit as you like spit and all the points. I like caught it in my hand.
Sorry.
We're going to go to Poplar and Pigeon Roost, which are two of the harder hit areas of this area. And check out the roads there, basically surveying them so that when we start being tasked by these guys on Saturday, that we're
If you're wondering, for those that know what it is, they're running ATAC.
familiar enough with the area to be able to respond to the emergencies without getting ourselves stuck.
You know what the plate carriers here? You know, somebody keyed in on this. They were like, "Why are they wearing kit?" Like, yeah, he's got a plate carrier on, but he's got phones in it. And I was jealous that he had a plate carrier, if I'm being honest with you, because again, it was about 40 degrees, and when you're going at 55, 60 miles an hour at 40 degrees, it's not warm, right? I was jealous of his plate carrier on the way here. Anyway.
TCs.
One of those small bridges here that miraculously kind of survived. But this bridge alone connects the community that's up in these sticks up here with basically the groceries that are here. And if it was out, this is kind of one of the problems. If it was out, then they effectively would have had to drive into Tennessee to get basic necessities, which could be hours. Right, that's one of the major issues right now. It's not necessarily in all circumstances. In some circumstances, it is an issue, but not necessarily that they don't have access to stuff. But a basic run to grab a gallon of milk at the moment, because a single bridge is out, could be the Oregon Trail to get there. This is me recording in the front seat here. Are there any engineering units building temporary bridges? Yes, absolutely. One of the things, let me pause for a second. One of the things that I was really disappointed that I didn't get a chance to go and see, and we were supposed to link up with them to do it, is the engineering team doing engineering stuff. We went on these recons, and we were supposed to eventually link up with them, but I guess they got so immersed in what they were doing that day that the link up never happened. But the CSM, kind of relayed back. He was like, "I wish you could have seen what I just saw my team do." Basically, they're just, everybody is making shit happen, whether it be volunteer organizations, the resources that are on the ground for the Guard, or the USAR teams. The problem is scale. It has always been scale. Not enough people are talking about scale, because again, you've got this riverbed here. On the other side of that ridgeline, you're going to have another riverbed that's going to stretch, 10, 15 miles up to its end, right? There's going to be communities all along that, and water took them out. On the other side of that one, there's going to be another one and another one and another one, right? The complexity and the scale of this is just a lot different from your standard hurricane that hits a coastal floodplain. The water rises. Most of the houses are made for that, are built for it. Not all. Of course, they are devastating. And then it recedes. And the destruction is on a coastal floodplain. It's called a plain for a reason. Not in an Appalachian holler. Much different. about the Redneck Air Force here in a minute. Spent 48 hours with them. All right, so this guy, I don't know his name because I didn't go up and I didn't chat with him specifically. This guy is Lloyd's nephew. You'll meet Lloyd in a second, sort of. Lloyd's nephew lives, just like a lot of these communities, right next to his uncle, right? This is Pigeon Roost. So behind me, it goes up a little ways and then it ends, right? That's it. Then it ends. There is only a very small creek, but that creek absolutely tore this place apart. They have no power. Both Lloyd's nephew that you see here, that the guard recce team is chatting with, this is again a welfare check. Both Lloyd's nephew and everybody in this community is entirely cut off of aid. Or, excuse me, entirely cut off of power. Aid is a different story. We'll talk about that in a second. This is Lloyd. Lloyd is rocking the most obnoxious Trump hat. So I record this section of just the guard going up there and, you know, saying, hello, what do you need? How can we help you? And then I walked up here and talked to Lloyd. Lloyd is wearing the most obnoxious Trump hat you could imagine. I mean, the biggest. Anyway, Lloyd is operating 24/7 off of a generator right now. He has in his possession at this time 5 gallons total for that Jenny. He can't, even though the road is clear, and he doesn't know that because this community cut themselves out. Most of them don't know that the road is clear all the way out. He can't leave, though, to go and get that because his wife is essentially laid up in a chair. The only thing that he had to say when the guard got there was how blessed, you know, they were for coming to support him. Huge hat, big Trump hat. But he was in tears, just happy to see people continuing to come up there. Now they've been receiving, and I think I have footage of it here in a little bit that I can show you. They've been receiving donations and aid to their church. I'll play this while I'm talking. Which is right down the road here. There's not going to be any footage of me going up there. But again, this is the uncle to the guy previously. And the only reason, I mean, the biggest reason that they stopped there was because the nephew said, hey, go check on my uncle. Just they live next to each other, which is interesting. Probably just reinforcing that, you know, I'm sure the nephew knows what his uncle needs, but they said, hey, check on my uncle. He's next door. Mountain people hit different and are an appreciative people. This is a hard group of people, man. I mean, a hard group. They live out here in the middle of nowhere for a reason. Now, I will note that this area that we're in here is in Mitchell County as well. And I think that's pertinent and important. So here we are down at the community church, which is, I don't know, maybe 300-400 meters down the road from Lloyd's place. And they basically, we just kind of happenstance stopped here, right? We wanted to stop by to where they're essentially all of the aid that's coming to this community was stopping. They have a storeroom full of food, water, etc. Their biggest needs, which you're about to see in a second, are gas for the generators. Now, the guard team actually offered to just give them the gas they had on their vehicles. The problem that we ran into is all of the generators that were out there were running off of gas, and all of these vehicles run off of diesel. So all we had was diesel. So that basically rounds that out. I've got other footage on my phone of this, and let me see if I actually have that. Let me see if I have the footage of the most interesting aspect to that, which is while we were there, a volunteer civilian bird dropped in to provide aid. Lo and behold, it was gas. Gas, they brought 10 gallons of gas. They brought, some snacks and stuff. Let me see where it is here. I'm almost certain I have it. Yeah, there it is. Here's that bird. Civilian bird. While we were there. I killed the, I put a minus 10 decibels on the mic for this portion of it because that bird was washing out all the other audio. Now I asked the team guy for the recce team that had an understanding of military aircraft if a Black Hawk or F-47 would be able to land here, and he was like, hell no. What you don't see is if we were to pan it, and I mean, I'm sure like the 160th or somebody, a little bird and whatnot. But when it comes to that slope up the back, rotor wash would be a problem there. Bailout for this is according to them. Bailout would be, a bank to the left. That's kind of SOP, if you will. Well, there's another ridge line immediately to my left that you don't see here. So this is an area that's almost, generally speaking, unreachable by most military air, at least from a, safety of the bird perspective. And the Guard loved seeing this. As long as, again, they are running stuff that people need, and they absolutely were. So there's this running perception that, specific to the Guard, again, I can only speak to the things that are in my face. There's this running perception that there's kind of two sides, if you will, and that is not the perception I walked out of there with, right? So I'm standing next to the Guard out here, and I ask him, I'm like, can a, Black Hawk land there? And he pulls up ATAC and plugs in something, and he's like, oh, no, man. Like, we could in an emergency, but for a supply run or something, we would probably just coordinate with this air. You're going to see some of that coordination here in a minute, where volunteers are bringing in military air for heavy lift kind of stuff. They're more integrated than you might think. Not everywhere, but especially in the bigger volunteer operations. So I actually went up and talked to these guys. I ended up setting the camera down like right here. I didn't keep recording just to see what organization they were from. And I don't necessarily remember it. They were receiving tasking, I want to say, out of Hickory Airport, if I'm not mistaken, but they essentially offloaded this chopper with stuff onto the back of this pickup, and then it got stored in that church that I mentioned. Yeah. Now, both the pilot and the passenger were helicopter pilots for this. Badass dudes, man. Hell yeah. Let's go to the next one. Oh, well, we'll go back to the video we were just watching because it's going to move to the Lawrence to a bridge in relief that I actually just tweeted this out on the Funker account, this portion of it. And it's going to start to bring all the destruction out a little bit more. No, not that one. Recce and welfare one. Yeah, this is what we want. So let's get past Lloyd again. All right. This is going to give you a little bit of context on like a before as well. So what things looked like before while we're driving into the area. Here you go.
Hold on tight.
So across the street here, you see these orange shirts? Somebody mentioned Samaritan's Purse earlier. I need that frame. I need that frame. Right there. You can actually see it. Perfect. This house is very old. The guy that lives here, I'm not going to, I shouldn't have given you Lloyd's name, but I know his name. The guy that lives here is alive. He's okay. Samaritan's Purse is helping him clear out his house because this hole is in his foundation. And it's like an old early 1900s type foundation. It's just rock. That house is holding on by one column of rocks. And Samaritan's Purse is over there right now, you know, with him, just clearing all of his belongings out of there. Now, what you won't see, I don't think I have footage of it in this video, is to the left. There are basically two houses that bookend this bridge that you'll see in a moment. On the left side, that house is up to like your nipples, full of mud. Crazy stuff. There's the bridge there. The guard actually got called out here specifically. So they were called to this location very specifically, and that was to see if they could bring heavy machinery out to reinforce this section. So the road kind of goes down here and then turns and goes up. Normally the road would be at the level that we're at right now, and would just turn into the bridge. And then there's a frame of this video that's going to show you that. So you'll see some footage of the guard coordinating with the task force guys, the USAR, urban search and rescue dudes that are up here. But they're reconning this area to see, you know, how and where they can get additional heavy machinery down here to try and reinforce it. Because residents are traversing this right now. And it might be secure from a temporary perspective, but when it comes to, like, I don't know if this matters to you, but Department of Transportation secure, it's very much not. There is a massive sinkhole in this that goes straight down to the water here on one side. Here's what it looked like previously. You see that turn in there.
Okay. So that, but the bridge itself looks good. Okay. So really, it's actually more like a sinkhole developed at the end of the there's the concrete approach slab, the last 10 feet.
Will on the camera. You can see, you know, if Will wasn't panning so quickly, where the road used to be, like the level that the road used to be, and where the road is now, here. Like, this is the previous asphalt. Kind of an interesting perspective there. And this is everywhere, man. You know, I'm only showing you a couple examples here, but this is what everywhere looks like. Note the railroad track, kind of tossed aside like a noodle there. Harley dealer, we'll see some footage of the Harley dealer here in a bit. I spent 48 hours or so with them. The Lawrence Canup Jr. Bridge. So Lawrence Canup Jr., 1974, I did a little bit of research into him, was killed by a drunk that took his, if I'm not mistaken, took his pistol from him or something and killed him. It was just renamed this year. So like April or May of 2024. This bridge was just named after Lawrence Canup Jr. this year. And it's in the state it's in now. A lot of military people's at heart. Yeah, I was there for, again, about 48 hours. We'll have a bunch of footage of them here in a minute. Now, if I know the audio is a little bit low. Again, you can see just the mass of Samaritan's Purse over here, helping that guy out with his house and clearing out all his belongings. But if you heard the recce team talking to the task force guys, what they were saying is the bridge itself is actually, it looks like shit, but it's relatively safe to drive on. And their biggest concern was that hole over here. It's like a sinkhole that they really needed to get more material to pack that full. And that's why they wanted the guard to come out here and double check it and see if they could get heavy machinery in there. This is a powerful shot here. Okay, let's come back up. And we'll go back into the main camera. So I have colored all of that footage. Oh, that's just traveling on the razors. Nothing crazy about that stuff. Yep, got all that. Just the one that you can see. Yeah. So that railroad track, that's not coming back for a while. Look through the trees here. Just barely make it out. There it is. I got the camera out too late to grab that. See it hanging over like right there. So take you back to the EOC for a second. So this was that evening. The National Guard having their kind of evening sync on everything that happened that day, challenges, you know, if you've been a part of one of these, you understand what's happening here. Why's my audio suck? I had good levels. Let's see if the other video is good.
Owners can go back in, and I think
There we
they
go.
feel a lot better about having DOT, emergency operations, guard, everyone saying, hey, this is a good site, you can move back in. So I think that's pretty much it for us. Need a battery from a radio, and that's about it.
Okay.
So this is the commander of that little task force. This is the sergeant major. He is a funker. Is very familiar with the Funker 530 community. Watches the streams and such. He was an absolute resource to just be able to bounce realistic questions off of. You know, just no shit. What's happening? And these, I don't care. I shouldn't say it. I shouldn't put it that way. How do I frame this? My job was to go there and showcase kind of the current state, right? It isn't.
Are we going to be reconnecting with
1 second.
Clear that.
Let me get the right person in the frame here.
Was,
It isn't this sergeant's fault if not enough resources were aligned against this in preparation. It is not his fucking fault. And too many people are aligning that problem with him, right? He's out there doing what he can based on the equipment that he has and the mission that they have at hand. All right. That's what all of these guard guys are doing. They're all local North Carolinians. Some of them actually, like our guide lives in Asheville. Like that's his home. He's out there doing what he can. So is this warrant, I guess it is here. So is the E6 that's sitting to his right there, the lieutenant, the captain over there. If there was any perceived or actual delay in resources, it is not his fault, right? You need to look at a layer above that, and you need to start with the state. So the way it all works is the state activates its National Guard under DSCA and Title 32, and they did posture resources ahead of time. Whether that was enough or not, there's subjectivity there. I would argue that it wasn't. I would also argue, though, that the complexity of the challenge at hand could not have been planned for to a certain extent, right? You can always have more. Everybody always wants more. We always are going to want more for people that are out there. But people are seeing the work that the Guard is doing, and they're saying things like, finally, what a piece of shit. You should have been there earlier. That's not that guy. Shut the fuck up. Right? Talk to the governor for not posturing assets. Talk to Roy Cooper for not posturing assets more ahead of time if that's how you feel. Talk to Biden for not posturing additional bodies. But I'll show you a video here in a minute of what additional bodies gets you if it's not needs-based, right? There's a video that I commented on earlier of just 30 CBP agents standing next to each other for Hurricane Milton, passing a fucking log. Throwing bodies at the problem, it's not needs-based. It has to be needs-based, and more is necessary. Anyway, I'm going to get off that, but here's more of this.
It was an area where maybe someone, it might get a little dicey with some of the locals, but for the most part, everyone's really good. So.
Okay, fantastic. Let's see. Any concerns for the next 24?
No, sir. Other than that, regaining the battery comms, I think we're good to go.
Cool.
We still have one vehicle organic to us.
Any updates from our Big Creek Crossing project?
Yes, so on the way to the objective today, there was a landslide. Got the D7 out, cleared that.
Wait, sorry. What, like, as you were going to?
No, it was already on the road. So, yeah, I'd like to keep you on your toes.
Yeah, okay.
So anyway, yeah, we got that cleared. Got down there. We cut into the mountainside more. We're able to get lets down through there now. Humvees can make it. We got a good decent, I'd say 75% of the river rock base established. Like I said, I'll work with you later on getting some either ABC, ballast, whatever you got. I can
Is
put
it
on
like that mud sort of mucky sort of stuff?
more or less, yeah.
I would like to reiterate that everything was available to us to record. Like, you're seeing their internal sync right now. So when people are inferring that, like, the government is hiding something, this is the government. This is the government and their response, because, again, the response is led by the state. It's not led by federal. It's not. It's not how DR works. There's reason. Back to the video.
The River Stone's kind of taking it up, so anyway, got the Ford site. It's pretty like 50% complete.
Was a warrant.
We took the let down
Also.
there, got the General F350 out of the river.
Oh, you did?
We did.
Okay. How, did you use the let or did you use a winch on the?
We used the let with the winch.
Oh, I did not think it was going to be able to pull it. Okay, good
Yeah.
deal.
Anecdote. Let's chat about this for a second, because he just mentioned a very specific incident that made its way to social media and blew up. It absolutely blew up as a hazmat problem near the Asheville area. What it was an F-350 that had careened into the water, essentially, and somebody called it in as a potential hazmat problem. Well, first and foremost, they had already cordoned that area off long before the call ever made it in that it was a hazmat issue. So the recorded video that was out there, it had already been checked and the hazmat had been cleared. There's an additional hazmat thing that's making its way around social media. I can't speak to that one. I'm only speaking to this one, which would have been, last week or about a week ago. So they had not only already done that, but by the time this was happening, they had actually put this netting in place around it in case any of like the oil or gas did leak out of that. So he is talking about using the let to pull that thing out with chains. And the commander is like, I didn't think you could do that. Kind of an example of the Guard making shit happen out there that they're not getting the credit for, in my opinion. Right? again, I can't speak to any perceived or actual delay. All I can tell you is that perceived or actual delay of resources is not Captain Wilkins's fault or the lieutenant next to him or Mr. Fields over there.
The trailer's still out there. It disconnected and broke loose. Russ came by. He has an excavator that'll come in great help. The fuel tank is unstrapped and like halfway off the trailer. So we're thinking if we can use the excavator, if he can drive that out there, more or less push it back up onto the trailer, we can ratchet it down and then pull it out the way we did the F-350. Pretty much for that.
Just me getting out of their way, man. I felt like I was intruding, dude. I know that this is to a certain extent valuable for people, but the only thing that I can think of the entire time I'm there is like, how do I not get in your way? Like, because at this stage, I'm not helping. I'm only recording. Let's move on. A little bit more footage here. Quite a bit more, actually. I got a bunch of just general B-roll of the National Guard as they're out there. The flight back. We'll talk about this for a second. So the flight back is what we recorded comms for. I have comms for this entire flight, and the big takeaway I would say is the deconfliction between. I'm actually dealing with my mics right now. Like, we're about to land, and I'm listening to comms, so I'm trying to secure my gear. But the amount of deconfliction that there was taking place between civilian air traffic, military air traffic, Hickory, birds. Some of them are on comms, some are not on comms. I'll give you an anecdote from that. As we were pulling in, Hickory Airport was saying, you're on your own if you come in here. I've got an Airbus coming in. I've got this coming in. I've got that coming in. So approach at your own kind of risk, if you will. So to a certain extent, everybody thinks that like the military is shutting everything down. Well, Hickory's managing their own airspace right now. They're managing in and out. The same thing applies to the Harley dealership, where the LZSO ATCs are managing in and out. They're managing their immediate airspace. One of the things that I love about the Harley dealership, is they actually had the Freak that they were operating off of spray painted in a massive sign on the ground there. Being an embed's kind of awkward. Yeah, it's my first embed. It was weird, man. It's weird. I just felt like I was in the way. Like I was taking up a shooter's seat or something on a mission. That's just video of us getting off the chopper. They got real pissy because we were going to walk. We were just going to walk across the flight line. They were like, you can't walk. We got to have a golf cart come and pick you up. So we should be moving to... Old Fort. Old Fort is another area. Just, that was destroyed, man. We actually put the drone up for Old Fort. Yeah. So there's also a guard team here. These are all guard. I didn't realize that out of the gate. But all of these dudes over here, and some chicks, I guess, they're all National Guard. They're working to clear these waterways. See footage of that here in a second. With like this little tractor here. But for those that might have missed the beginning, like that house. And what's weird is, again, I wish I would have done this for this example, is if you turn the camera around, it's like pristine. It's hard to describe. A dichotomy is the only word that came to mind. Wrong button. go. Give you some footage of. I think this is the one of the guard. Nope, that's the road. Yeah. So right next to. So there's that house that I just showed you. Here's the road that had been undermined, or the term where basically it washes out underneath of the asphalt and the asphalt collapses. I have family members down there. They're safe. Only had power knocked out. Good. See if I can get some of that guard work. What is this? This looks like my truck. Yeah, it's Will flying the drone off of my truck. I wonder if let's see if I can pull up the drone footage for you. Oh, stop. Drone. We didn't get much on the drone. Yeah, so I was standing here. There's that house over there on the left. What is this? This doesn't do a whole lot of justice to what the problem really looks like as you drive down the main drag back there. Note the tracks. Wash out on the tracks there. Some of them. It's okay up through here, but the water is moving this way. So it's, I mean, again, it's all those waterways just, the mountains just turned into a gas pedal for that. And again, it doesn't do a great job. The drone doesn't. But as you're driving up this main street here, it feels, it looks better from the drone, but it feels apocalyptic because these are all of these front yards are full of debris. All the parking lots are full of like river sand. Like these are all supposed to be like black asphalt roads. Water was just through all of this. All right, go back to the main. I think we're going to start getting into the footage from the volunteer side of the house. I shouldn't say side of the house, but from the volunteers. Because that was Old Fort. Oh, here's that the little excavator or tractor, whatever it is. So the guy driving and the guy down here, they're both National Guard. One log at a time, pulling that out, driving it up the river a little ways. And this is actually after the embed, right? So I'm at this point, Will and I are no longer embedded with the National Guard. We wanted to just go and see Old Fort. We had heard that things were pretty devastating there, and we got there and we just ran into these guys. So at this point, we're kind of on our way to the Harley dealership. So Harley Davidson of Asheville, which is where the Redneck Air Force, which they don't prefer being called, by the way. They prefer Savage Freedom's operations. Savage Freedom's operation. That's the footage that we're going to pull up next. What is this? Oh, just a little pedestrian bridge that was taken out. So this is all going to be footage of Savage Freedoms, which they're running one of the they're running one of the largest air and ground operations in Western North Carolina. Now these guys are LZSO qualified air traffic controllers. So these are Air National Guard that are embedded down there with volunteer organizations to help manage HLZs. That's their function. They specialize in LZ, HLZ, and drop zone operations. One of these guys I made a personal contact with, and he kind of continues to just, keep me updated with things. He actually corrected me in one instance. He went out, found socials, and was like, hey, just so you know, we're not JTACs, right? We are LZSO qualified air traffic controllers. This is their job. What this is enabling the Savage Freedoms guys to do, though, is, and it didn't happen while I was there, and we actually waited an extra hour and a half just in case it did, is they are actually, Savage Freedoms is leveraging military air, specifically CH-47s, to airlift things like hay bales and feed to farms and places where the road might be open, but it's not open enough to get big vehicles in and out of there. So you have this integration of military and volunteer civilian organizations, which is going to get better here in a second, that not enough people are talking about. Again, too many people are talking about this like, the military's not doing shit. It's all volunteers. There's more integration than you think in their early, first week or so, 3, 4, 5 days to week. Yeah, they were probably trying to figure out what the battle space looked like. But at this juncture, they are very integrated. Example, the 82nd Federal Title 10 troops are being task organized by Savage Freedoms operations. Volunteers are task organizing the 82nd Airborne. Or is it the 101st? I think it might be the 101st instead. Excuse me. I continue to fuck that up. It's the 101st out there. But they are task organizing the 101st. The integration that's happening right now is so much more than people will give credit. And I need to make sure, because I talked to Savage. I was like, hey, what can we and can we not record? And just like the Guard, they're like, I don't give a shit what you record. Here's what we're trying to do. And hopefully you're able to help us tell that mission. I was like, what about at the time, what about the JTACs? Can I record them? He was like, please showcase that. Please make sure people know that without them, we would not be as effective. Now, there's also a video that I put out on Twitter that shows Adam Smith, the guy that's running Savage Freedoms, really leaning into the crowd, right? Very, very forward, direct tone, like, get your fucking stuff. I don't remember what specifically he said. I'd have to go back and I can pull that from my Twitter. But a bunch of people were like, why is he talking to people like that? Well, all of these spots that you don't see right now, but all these spots over here the following day get filled up by vehicles. This is in rotor wash danger zone for the CH-47s that would be landing out here. If you're not familiar with the CH-47, it generates a massive amount of lift. A lot, which ultimately is going to be resultant in much more rotor wash, much more downward pressure from the rotors. He had been asking for like an hour, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes to an hour, who knows how long it was, a long time, for people to move their vehicles so that they could get a CH-47 in there so that they could get the hay and feed out to somebody that was requesting it. And if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on this part, but they actually had to wave the bird off because people weren't coming back to move their vehicles. So eventually he put a stop to all operations and handled it himself, got everybody in a circle, gathered them up and said, listen, I need you to move that vehicle, because if you don't move those vehicles, and I said that vehicle, those vehicles, we're going to lose our military air. And people lost their mind. They're like, no, volunteers are doing all of it. Volunteers can't airlift hay bales. It's too heavy. He said, we're going to lose our military airlift. And if that happens, we can't fulfill the calls for aid from these farmers that need hay, that need feed, that need the heavier items that we can't lift with the little dinky chopper that's doing all the runs into the hollers. And nobody out there had a problem with it. None. Everybody out there was like, fuck yeah, let's get it done. We'll get it done. I posted that to Twitter and people lost their goddamn mind. People said something akin to, he should be talking to people like that. You know, he's got an attitude problem. He's running a bad operation. This is Savage Freedoms out there at the Harley dealership. They've had 2 senators visit them. They're running a hell of an operation out there. If you want to talk a bunch of shit on Twitter, go down there and tell him that yourself. Adam Smith is, if I'm not mistaken, former Green Beret. You know, most of these guys are former SOF. You're not going to. You're going to sit there on Twitter and run your mouth. But let me close that thought, right? I'm getting on a soapbox here because this matters to me. These dudes are fucking killing it. And that drove me up the wall. Ultimately, the reason he was really trying to reinforce that. Imagine that a CH-47 lands in there trying to get hay and stuff loaded so that it can take it out to people in need. And that person didn't move their vehicle that was too close to the HLZ, and the windows get blown out from rotor wash. And that makes its way to Twitter, and that or Telegram, wherever, makes its way to social media, and that goes viral. Once again, the National Guard is in there purposefully rotor washing aid sites, and the National Guard is going to shut it down. They're going to be like, all right, nah, man. Nah, no. And they can't have that, man. The dysfunction and propagation of bullshit narratives on social media is actually causing problems. Like, actually. I'm not saying that there aren't problems because, again, the complexity to this is such that there are going to be a lot of problems. Most of those problems can go back to either negligence, ineptitude, or generally speaking, just overarching complexity. I talked about this earlier, but you've got those hollers, right? And I keep saying that word, and I'm hoping that it sinks in. But every draw has got a house in it. Some of them could be purposefully living off grid. These are hard people. They live out there like this for a reason. And each one of those needs to be checked. Without interoperability and without the ability to collate resources, that you'll have civilians that have mobility capabilities that only the most elite military forces do. I don't personally have the expectation that Private Smith that drives an excavator can do the same things as a former SOF operator that happens to have a razor. I don't have that expectation, and neither should anybody else. Right? Without interoperability, none of this is going to work at all. And volunteers need military airlift. They need to ensure that they're collaborating with military, so that they're on military comms, so that they're, tied in with local law enforcement. If they're not, they're going to get turned around because the road is out up there, and law enforcement is trying to keep people from going down that road because Department of Transportation engineers are actively trying to clear the problem. That way aid can continue to pass. But if these volunteer organizations aren't tied in with their counterparts that do very much still, in the circumstances I was able to see, I can't speak to every localized problem, that do still very much want aid to be passed by volunteer organizations, it's not going to work. You got to tie in. Because when the road is out, they're going to shut the fucking road down. LZSO qualified air traffic controllers.
Kind of almost don't hold straight. I kind of just.
Let's bring it back up. Getting heated. What else do we got here? I think I have more footage of operations out there. This should be a good one. Just some perspective of what they've got going on.
I hear it. I hear it.
I don't know what I heard. It's a bird coming in of some kind. Yeah, so again, right now, all of this area here is clear and open. By the next day, 24 hours later, vehicles were parked all the way up to this little wadi, this little creek. Once again, they're wearing gear, but it's got snacks in it. You know, that was another thing. You know, right along the same lines, is it's always Twitter. I posted a video, and everybody was like, "Why are they wearing gear?" It's got snacks in it. That's where he's holding his meat sticks and his energy drink. I'm jealous. I didn't bring. I had a lot of gear with me. It's in the truck though. But I mean, come on. Quit trying to fucking spin something just to get people riled up. All right, let's come up, see what else I've got here. I don't have a rhyme or reason to this stream. I just wanted to show the footage, and I don't know how I'm going to shape it all and put it all together. I don't want to shape it. I just want to show people the problem. I want to show you more of Savage Freedoms, though, because they're fucking killing it, man. Oh, here we go. So they've got volunteers bringing in food. The food's great, you know. And these are the same guys that are running the same type of food out to, you know, people that need it. You've got medics back here. And this is like at the end of the day, so there's not a whole lot of people. I'll show you what it looks like at the beginning of the day. Here we go. So a little bit more hustle and bustle. They've got the heater out there. You can see everybody's got jackets on. It's cold, man. LBE full of lickies and chewies. Yeah. So here's the one that I was hoping to get to here. The desk that you're looking at there. So they have a really awesome in and out check-in system that if you check in with the capabilities that you brought for that day, for however long you were going to be there. So if you're coming in with mobility, with chainsaw, with chainsaw capability, with med, you know, whatever it might be, you check in, you give your name and email or something, I think, and you let them know, hey, I've got medical experience, so I'm Will is an AEMT, advanced EMT, for example. I'm just there wearing pants. I feel so useless. I'm a pair of hands where I'm needed, but you would provide that information, and what they do is anytime they need, like, hey, we've got a community that's cut off. They need saws. I need 3 sawyers and 2 razors. And people say, all right, I'm ready. They'll mount up. They'll go out and clear that area out. The operation that they have out there is amazing to watch. It really is. I was like impressed. Not just like, oh, cool, you guys are volunteering. No. They are really trying to put together a cohesive operation, again, that is integrated at both the local law enforcement and military levels, right? Military, like I showed you earlier, is already integrated at like the state response level. So if they're tied into local law enforcement, they're going to end up being, by extension, tied into, to at least a certain extent, military resources. I think at one point I might have video of this. They had like Blackhawks coming in to drop off, additional resources for the military dudes that are stationed here with these guys. Anyway, more of this. Tons of people, man. Tons of people. Everybody working towards the same thing. What else do I have? More of that. Oh, man. The amount of aid that's getting brought here just by the truckload is so much. Yes, it was, Mosen. So much aid, man. Still not enough. Like, again, I go back to the complexity thing. You're looking at, I don't know why I didn't even talk about this. One of the things that I got insight into at the Emergency Operations Center was the estimated time specific to Yancey County. That's what I can speak to. I can't speak to what I didn't see. So I'm also not detracting from other issues that people might have run into. I'm just giving you my perspective of what I saw. That's it. But specific to Yancey County, the recovery for most of infrastructure was listed at between 6 and 12 months. That includes water, wastewater, power, roads, infrastructure, all of that. So when it comes to aid, yes, there is a general surplus. I can tell you there's more water than I've ever seen in my life. There's more water there than I ever saw, like in Afghanistan, anything like that. It actually reminded me of Afghanistan because there's pallets of water everywhere. There's tons of food. The priority right now, and I think I have video of it. The priority right now, ice, is warm gear. So frost. It's cold. It was cold a week ago, and it's only getting colder. But they're still going to, as an eventuality, need the other items too. So the pendulum will continue to swing. Right. So right now, yeah, keep them warm. Make sure that they, especially these hardened communities that are actively working to saw themselves out. Make sure they're not getting fucking electric chainsaws if they're running off of Jennies, right, and burning up the Jenny gas on the electric chainsaws. That's so stupid. Something's better than nothing. I get it, but and everybody's saying just charge it off the generator. No. You can give them chainsaws that take gas. Then again, you're taking you're not really taking gas away from the generator in most circumstances because you're taking like the premix, whatever. I think you get my point, right? The pendulum's going to continue to swing back and forth from right now they need this to eventually they're going to need that. And now we'll go back to this, back to that. For Savage Freedoms, the guys at the Harley dealership, their website is actually really good. Like you can go there and you can click on what to donate and stuff, whether you want to donate, volunteer. I was actually contacted by a mutual that was like, hey, I'm headed out. I'd like to link up with a group that can task me. I sent them here. Let's come back up, see what else we've got. We're coming towards the end of it here. What button am I looking for? That one. Oh, there's the footage of let's see how much of this I got.
Stand in the fucking supply area with the black hat. They can't hear me because you're old.
This is Adam. So I mentioned earlier that I put out a video from my phone of Adam trying to get people to move their shit. This is Adam trying to rally everybody up, take ownership of the problem, and fix it. Listen, he's yelling, yes, but look at the morale of everybody there. He isn't pissing anybody off.
Bring it in, please. Oh, it's Joe. Hey, Joe. I love you.
Let's keep watching more of this. This is Adam Smith.
Good. Let's do it. Let's just do a quick check. Real quick. If you own the vehicles that are in this in this area that's not a parking lot, that are tagged with a yellow-orange engineer tape, or you know the person that owns that vehicle, it has to move right now. That's the first thing. The second thing, I need somebody to coordinate with our front gate guys that can help deconflict ground traffic. No extra Roger that. You got it. Thank you. Stand by. No extra vehicles can be parked in this front parking lot. Okay?
There's a specific section of this.
Now, one of the critical issues that we ran into earlier last week. Good.
That's the part where it starts getting real good.
Kerfuffle, where tents were blown away and supplies were blown away.
So he's talking about the video of the Black Hawk that was flying over top of an aid area, and aid was flying all over the place, just to contextualize that.
And somebody posted a TikTok video, said, look at the fucking government trying to screw with our shit. In reality, it was a bunch of individuals who didn't know how to operate around helicopters, who had cluttered the airfield, and the HLZ and the helicopter pilot decided to pull off at the last second because he didn't want to cause any actual damage. So really, thank you for the pilot, and to the guys on the ground, you gotta consider what's going on. So, if we land 2 Chinooks out here, and your cars are parked over there, when those Chinooks land, it's very probable that the rotor wash will throw your windows out, knock the freaking UTV off the trailer, and break your shit, and I don't want to have that happen. So, when I say that this is an urgent thing and nothing else happens until that gets fixed, I mean nothing else happens until that gets fixed. Because if we don't fix it, we will lose our military aircraft. And that is unacceptable. Because if we lose those mil air, we cannot continue to do the resupply drops to the local farms that need hay and feed and everything else. So if you guys can help me with that, I would be extremely grateful. Next, this.
So he's about to get into what you saw earlier, which is people congregating in that area I was initially filming where the heater was. That's a road. That's the intake for all the aid. And throughout the day, people just stand there playing tummy sticks, man. And I experienced this when I was trying to drop off the aid that we brought in, right? Like people just won't move. And they're trying to get aid dropped off and people out to keep that intake and outgoing moving as much as possible. Let's see if I have some of that. But this is what I posted to Twitter, and
it's because
everybody was like, what a shithead. And I'm like, are you guys fucking serious? He's trying to clean up his operation and make it as efficient as possible. Are you kidding?
Of you that it's truly effective.
So, the context part to this that people didn't get, that I think is so critical, is what's about to come here. This dude cares about everybody that's out there with him, right? He cares about every military bird that comes in that's enabling his operation. He cares about the 101st that's out there. He's just out there trying to help, man. This is what all of these volunteers are out there doing, is they're out there actively just fucking getting after it. And people are pitting them against the local state government that's out there also trying to accomplish the same thing. Now, there are still going to be these localized issues of power struggles, if you will, where small volunteer teams are trying to run a pallet of aid, which I experienced myself, and I watched this happen, to Chimney Rock. But Chimney Rock was closed down to local traffic only because they were repairing it, right? Locals were able to go in and out of Chimney Rock whenever they wanted to, right? And the National Guard was on ground in Chimney Rock, but it made its way out to Twitter that they're not allowing aid into Chimney Rock. It's like, well, let's think about this critically for a fucking second. If the locals can get in and out of Chimney Rock and the National Guard is in Chimney Rock, then if the locals need aid from the distribution center that is literally right outside of Chimney Rock, like it's right there, they just go grab it and take it back in there. Most people, because Chimney Rock doesn't exist, are not living in Chimney Rock. They're going back to pick up their lives, right? Anyway, this is the part that people didn't get from Twitter, and that's my fault because I posted it without this context. I'll own that. Listen to Adam.
And it's because of you that it's truly effective. Every single person standing in this circle right now is just as valuable as every other person. And I want to let you know how grateful I am of every single one of you. Because without this effort, and I do say this not tongue-in-cheek, and this is not for dramatic effect, without the civilian effort on the ground, the counties around Buncombe and the surrounding counties would be in a world of hurt. Far more so than what they were immediately after the disaster. It's been because of your efforts that every county has been watered and fed. It's because of your efforts that we figured out how to supply potable water back to the schools of Buncombe County. It's because of you guys that we've had an opportunity to spread a message far and wide that Western North Carolina is not gonna lay down and sleep, but they're gonna stand back up and get back to fucking work.
That's right. Hoorah.
And so because of you, and I'm grateful for you, and I appreciate you, that's why this is happening. And, operations hat on, for the operation to be smooth and efficient, we have to have the ability to coordinate effort through this space. So if you see yourself in the way, be situationally aware. Keep your head on a swivel. Know what's going on. If there's traffic coming around the road, or you see guys trying to park out there and it's not a traffic control person that's in the space, we need that help. Because you guys can see, we have bodies and we have some guys or some people that are still waiting to.
Yeah, I wish I do have more of this on my phone. So Will's holding the camera right now. This was a takeaway on my part. The camera that we brought out there, we were filming at 4K 30. It shuts off after a certain amount of time, and I think Will's trying to avoid that by capturing snippets of this. But I think at this point you probably have the same takeaway that I'm trying to relay. It's that, you know, specific to this area. Adam Smith is running a hell of a fucking operation, and I hope in some way, I don't know how, it gets back to him and his team that I talked to out there and said, listen, guys, I just want to show the world what you're doing and what this looks like, because it's amazing. I hope it gets back to them that we're trying to do that as a team at Funker. So, I mean, that's the primary thing, but I also want to, because I'm live on Twitter right now as well, I also want people that got pissy about that original video that I put up to see the additional context that I tried to call out there. Nobody there had any issue with the way he was speaking to them. Like, this was a problem. If you go back and find that post on Twitter, it is not okay. Let's just put it that way. All right, what else do I got here? I might have more. Nope. Let's see if I have anything on my that has uploaded to my phone. For those that are here from the Fit Locker, from the gaming community, here are the supplies that you guys donated, that you guys had set aside money to the Fit PC for, that we then moved and put in place for disaster aid for Helene. So here's that stuff. It's Will and I unloading the Little Buddy heaters. We had a cooler full of some water here for ourselves, but each of these totes is filled up with either kids or adult clothing, as well as propane for the Little Buddy heaters, flashlights, multi-tools, hot hands, and other miscellaneous like little snacks and stuff. I didn't even know Velian, so this is Velian that was recording. I didn't even know he was recording, but he sent that to me. Yeah, we did the vote in the Discord. Yeah, and I that was important to me, right? Because you guys have kind of donated all those funds to put a PC into somebody's hands, and I wanted to divert those funds to something else. So I put it in the Discord, and was like, hey, this is what I'd like to do with it, and not a single no. There was not a single no. And then to Funker, the 530 credit, I mean, that was only, so those Little Buddy heaters are like $60 a pop. You know, they're not cheap. So that 700 or so went pretty quickly. Ton of stuff we were able to get with it, but it still goes pretty quickly because, you know, again, a lot of this stuff, it's not cheap coming from like Cabela's, if you will. But Funker was like, fill up your truck and whatever the delta is, I'm going to pay for it. If I had a trailer, which I don't, I could have filled the trailer up and he would have paid for that. So there's so much credit that needs to go to Scott, to Funker, for the opportunity to do that. But there are also other people that, you know, drove the initial decision for us to make this trip, right? And again, the original trip was supposed to just be me loading up my truck and going down there. It wasn't going to be a footage trip. The embed kind of changed that. Guys like Mike over at Mr. Guns Gear, that dude's running fucking fixed wing full of supplies out into these areas, into Black Diamond, into Tennessee. So many people are rallying, and what's so unfortunate is we're still wrapped around, pointing fingers that not enough attention is being applied to how things are happening on the ground, and we're hunting for a bad guy. And in some circumstances, we're going to find one because the problem set is complex such that you can point back to not posturing enough assets from the National Guard, from not having Title X troops on the ground early enough, for FEMA not having enough resources deployed. There was a video that was shared out of some lady like grilling this local FEMA supervisor about shit that he doesn't know anything about. He was assigned a task to set up, a little fob for volunteers to have a place to stay so that they're not filling up the hotels. And that way disaster survivors could go to the hotels, which FEMA is then paying for, which is a part of the individual assistance programs, right? There's so much more nuance to this than people are giving the time and credit, that it's causing entire communities to almost to a certain extent be without. And that sucks, man. That sucks really hard. Mosin, you know Funker? Yeah, he knows Funker. Mosin is a part of the Funker team. He's the producer for the Funker 530 show, the podcast. He was out here for the Cappy interview. Anyway. I heard 300 deaths due to Milton. Milton I haven't had a chance to really dive into so far. Somebody had a question earlier about, is the government hiding the amount of deaths? I find that hard to believe. So it was between 200 and 300 about 3 or 4 days ago. In Yancey County specifically, as of the moment that I left ground, it was 10 total. 10 total deaths, with an additional, I want to say 8 missing or unaccounted for. Specific to Yancey County. This is, again, I can only speak to what's within arm's reach of me. Specific to Yancey County. If they're bullshitting about that, they're bullshitting each other about that, because that's the number that's being put out at every briefing, that's being put out at every discussion. That's the number that's on the chart that's in there. So again, if they're bullshitting about that number, they're bullshitting each other. But if you take that 10 and you then add that Yancey is one of 10 counties in western North Carolina, and you round about, add another 10 for every 10 counties, then you're at 100. Then you get to, the other states. And I doubt each county is 10, but then you get to the other 6 states or the other 5 states. It's pretty easy to fall inside of that 200 to 300 window, in my opinion. Right? So again, I can only look at what's in front of me. I can then make assumptions or educated guesses on what's happening elsewhere. But I mean, Yancey is really a major part of, or almost a center of gravity for a lot of this, right? That's kind of how I would approach that. But beyond Yancey County, I can't speak to what the government's doing in other locations. I can't speak to necessarily what FEMA specifically is doing, because again, the only FEMA person I ran into was the one liaison. Let me see if I have that footage. I can actually show her to you. It's on my Twitter. I don't know why it's not uploaded there. That's so weird, man. I don't know. I'll have to look into that. That was the FEMA liaison to the Emergency Operations Center. Now they have their compound, right? And they have personnel at the aid distribution sites. And the way aid is distributed, I don't think is truly understood. There's like a hub. I could show you photos of the hub that's not necessarily open to the public. It is for the distribution locations outward to come to replenish their stocks, right? Nobody's being turned away from a hub or anything. And if they are, they're being given directions to like the local distribution centers, which they're within miles of each other. They're not like, it's not like you're in Burnsville and you have to go to, fucking Bakersville to find a distribution site. They're much more plentiful than you think. What they're not, though, is, there are still circumstances where what I call, again, the last mile, where there are certain individuals in certain communities that they can't get out to even these satellite distribution centers. But FEMA had personnel out at those, but my job, the mission that I got tagged to, it wasn't to go and find FEMA. So I can't really speak to what they are or are not doing, if that makes sense. Right. So I'm not detracting from any challenges people are having with FEMA. I'm just saying I have no insight on it whatsoever. Anyway. That's what I have for the stream tonight. I appreciate you guys giving me the chance to kind of go through some of this stuff, because again, the intent is for me to wrap my thoughts around it and not be so bouncy back and forthy, which is a technical term, and I don't have a lot of time to explain it. I got one more video for you. Hold on. I talked about a dichotomy. Check this out. So the location with, this is what I mean, bouncy, backy, forthy. The location where Savage Freedom Ops is running right now, 100 feet from where I was recording all of that stuff, is this. $100 feet away. Let me just see if there's anything additional here. This is my phone. Dichotomy, once again. So that yellow house in Old Fort I showed you is back here. Right next to it is this old museum. And it's still standing. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Like, first of all, they don't make them like they used to. But that's still standing. It's generally washed out underneath of it. But that's that dichotomy I'm talking about. And the complexity of this is you never know if the community that you're going to go into or do a welfare check that day is going to be generally speaking fine, or if they're going to be just absolutely devastated. You know, it's hard to articulate. We'll just put it that way. So again, I just kind of wanted to talk through all this stuff. The intent is to do like a final summary video of my thoughts. And there's just so much of it that the only way I was going to be able to do it any level of maybe true justice is to just talk through it with you, right? Rather than try and edit together. I'm still going to do it. It needs to happen. But edit together this final production kind of thing that has a flow to it. I'd rather just show you the raw footage and talk through it. I think that's more valuable personally. It's the reason that we do the Funker stream that way. But I'm out of here, guys. I should see you on Tuesday. I wasn't here this Tuesday. I was kind of just, I still haven't even finished unpacking my truck. Just getting transitioned back into dad life, if you will. But I should see you on Tuesday, probably on the gaming channel. I got something pretty cool to announce officially on Monday, but I'll let you know now. I'm starting a new job. I will always have a job. My job is at Funker 530. That's my like passion work. That's what I will always continue to do, and nothing I do in addition to that will ever take away from it. But I did find a new 9-to-5, and it's with the National Association for Gun Rights, and I couldn't be more proud to be able to work in a field and for a subject and topic that matters as much to me as that. And the job is the Director of Industry Relations, and I accepted that job this week, and I start on Monday. And I'm super excited and proud to be a part of that organization. So you'll start to see a little bit more of my work from that. That'll emanate and make its way onto social media, but I wanted to kind of give you guys that are tuning in here a little bit of a heads up on that one. And it should open up a whole lot of doors. You know, for me personally, for us as Funker 530, we're still a small team, so we leverage personal relationships a lot. And I do think that some of the skills that I bring to the table are going to be helpful to NAGR too. Everybody has skills. Don't be afraid to use yours. One of mine is communicating, and that's one of the primary functions of my gig. Anyway, I'm out of here. Go be great. And we'll see you on Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Good night, ladies. Good night.